moving on with our program, we're all here also to pay homage and recognition to a wonderful photographer. And to tell you about this genius is Soror Dorothy Wideman Davis.
Good afternoon. It's great seeing all of you out for this occasion. We've worked very hard, probably not as hard as Curtis Humphrey.
Why?
Okay, is that better? Okay, my task here today is to tell you a little bit about his story. And the his, as I've said, is Curtis Humphrey. Does each one of you have a timeline in front of you?
Yes.
And that's what I'm going to be speaking from today. He's listed on the program on the timeline as Curtis Humphrey, 1907 through 1996, as a professional photographer. I also call him an informal historian. And you may ask why. It's because through his pictures, we have a history of his family and of the Tyler community, precisely the African American community. Were it not for him, many activities would not have been captured. They would not have been preserved. You would not be able to see many of them today and recall the joy that was going on and the sadness in many of those pictures. Mr. Humphrey was born in 1907 in a place called Durgin, Texas. As I was doing research on him, no, I'd never heard of Durgin, Texas. Had any of you? Well, probably the majority of you would say no, but his family has heard of Durgin, Texas, because that's where they originated, down in Durgin, Texas, which is in Rusk County. So we can learn a little everywhere we go and every day of our lives. He came from a blended family, and by that I mean he had his father married his second wife, and there was a family of 8 children, both boys and girls. Mr. Humphrey often said that his parents were old and poor, and that he needed to help his parents feed the family. So that's what he did at a very early age. He attended elementary school, and believe it or not, even with all of his successes, he stopped school to help the family when he was in 5th grade, never making it to junior high, never making it to high school. But success was still his. So at about age 16, he said, well, I've helped enough. I think I need to get out on my own. And he stayed in the area and got little odd jobs, picking cotton. It was work then, we call it odd jobs now. Cutting cord wood. Some of you know what that is. Some of you don't. I can't help you. But in 1932, he said, I'm going to leave the area, move on to bigger and better things. And that's what many of us say when we're about that age. So he moved to Fort Worth, Texas. And when he moved to Fort Worth, he had a series of jobs there as well. He said he did everything from working on the railroad, working in department stores, preparing displays for them. And then on one occasion, he took a job in a shoe store. And in that shoe store is where he began his photography career. One of the owners of the shoe store there were two owners. One of the owners had a photography business and said to him, well, we'll see if we can get you to work part-time in the shoe store and the other time with the photography side. So that went on. The other guy bought into it, and he began doing photography with the other owner. Well, Mr. Humphrey was the type who said that he thought he could learn anything easily and do most jobs very quickly. So as a result, the gentleman taught him photography. He said after about 3 weeks doing the job, he took some pictures to the owner to show him. The owner said to him, "How'd you learn this?" Mr. Humphrey replied, "From watching you." He said, "I'm a fast study." So that he was. That was around 1933. And in 1934, he bought his first camera. His first camera in 1934. And he said he taught himself to develop film at home. He was self-taught. I'm self-taught too. But I use a smartphone. So as we can see with all of the snaps that are going on here today, there has been a tremendous evolution in the photography business. Some may not call the smartphone results photography, but some of us do. After working in the photography business in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, he worked for the shoe store owner for less than a month and said, I'm on my own again. So he struck out on his own. And as the story goes, he was having so much business that he asked one brother to come up and help him. He then asked a second brother to come up and help him. He then asked a cousin to come up and help him. All because of the job in the shoe store that had nothing to do with shoes. He then joined the military in 1942, and still with an eye toward photography, he was a success there as well. He became the base photographer at MacDill Base in Tampa, Florida, as well as Andrews Air Force Base. Remember, this was in the 40s. Another success story. After being honorably discharged from the military, he moved to Marshall to teach photography at Wiley College. He stayed there for a few years, and then he got a call to come to Tyler. He said that they had a photographer there, but somehow something happened to the gentleman. He drowned in Lake of the Pines. So he said he was a little reluctant about taking the position, but he took it anyway. So he moved to Tyler in 1947, and he began teaching photography at Texas College. He continued to teach there until 1953-54, when the governmental officials from Austin came down and found out that he did not have a high school diploma, a college education, or a college degree, or a graduate degree. So some folks say he was relieved of his position, some folks say he was fired, but whatever you want to call it, he was no longer at Texas College. But it didn't sway him. He just walked across the street, walked across the street and opened his own photography studio. when one door closes in your face, another one will open up often. And we see that with Mr. Curtis Humphrey. He, as I call it, was the photographer of choice in the African American community. Weddings, funerals, automobile wrecks, autopsies, cemetery sites. He even tells a story of someone calling him to the funeral home to take a picture, often because relatives would like to see pictures of the deceased, but will not be able to get to the funeral, make it to the funeral. So he said the person was very low in the casket, and it was difficult for him to get a picture. So he said that he was the only one in the room. So he took a brick, a second brick, and then he saw some books, and he took them and quickly slid them under the person's head so that he would be able to get a good enough view of the deceased to make a good picture. He said he got his picture, took the bricks out, took the books out, went on home and developed the picture, and now you know the rest of the story. So those are some instances of his work in the African American community. Weddings, football games, basketball games, preschool, kindergarten,